Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. From the Cascadian Northland, I am one of your hosts, Dustin, and with me, as usual, Mad Max, all the way in Australia. Matt is with us, and we have another guest with us today. His name is also Matt, so throughout the episode, there's going to be Aussie Matt and regular Matt. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you coming on. This is gonna be a fun one. Just real quick, kind of let everybody know what you do, and just so people are familiar with you a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Well, my name's Matt Solis. I write for Decibel magazine. I guess that's probably the main thing. I've been writing for Decibel for about 3 or 4 years now.
Nice.
I just did my first cover story, actually, the Immolation cover, if you guys are familiar with the magazine.
Yes.
But
we get the occasional thing of Decibel out here, yeah.
Cool. I'm glad somebody's out there reading it. So write for Decibel, and I also play in a black metal band here in the Bay Area called Cormorant. We've been around for 10 years now, and we just recorded our 4th album, so that's going to be coming out pretty soon. And then I also play in a doom band called Ursa. So kind of busy with all kinds of metal stuff, but
nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, we'll link to all that stuff in the episodes and put that out there for you.
Rad.
Cool. So this week we have 3 albums to talk about. After our last episode, we kind of decided we're going to jump ahead a number of years to 1987 for a number of reasons. One being that we kind of felt everybody was getting a little tired of hearing like the really old school stuff, which is fair. And also because a lot of these albums, since it's 1987, are going to be celebrating 30th anniversaries. So they're going to be a little bit more relevant again, which is cool. So it'll be nice to talk about these albums and let people know about the history of them, and 30 years on, how do they hold up kind of deal, you know?
Didn't something else happen also 30 years ago?
Yes. We're not going to talk about it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm about to be 30, so I'm kind of an older gentleman.
Well, hold on a minute. Australian Matt, how old are you, dude?
26.
Okay, I'm 33 over here, so let's pump the brakes on the old gentleman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old man at heart, so.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just weirding me out that I'm going to be 30. But, yeah, so.
That's fine.
I figured it's me being around for almost 30 years. It'd be cool to talk about albums that came out when I was born.
Yeah, that's always weird.
Yeah, it is. Especially since, like, it's old, but for me, it's, like, been around my whole life. So, yeah, the first album we're going to be talking about this week, Racer X. The album is called Second Heat. It came out February 11th, 1987. For people who are kind of unfamiliar with Racer X, you might know the name Paul Gilbert because he's one of those, like, insane virtuoso guitar players. Like, he is just a guitar shredding machine. And this was like his first band that he started back in the 80s. So we're going to talk about that album first.
Yeah, it's like when you think of names like Joe Satriani, Yngwie Malmsteen, Jason Becker, like Paul Gilbert is also in those ranks as well. So
yeah.
This really is like for all you guitar nerds out there, this is an album that you think you guys should listen to.
Yeah, don't let the vocals fool you. Like, it is a little bit on the verge of like hair metal vocally, but I think stylistically and the way the songs are written, yeah, it's more like thrashy, just speed metal more than anything. As far as I think, anyways.
It kind of walks this fine line between shred and like the music you would hear in like an 80s movie when you were like encountering the bad guy at the pool hall or something like that.
Yeah, it really does. It's definitely on that line right there. One actually cool thing about this is it was recorded in the Bay Area. It was recorded in Cotati, so very familiar with that area.
Is that at? Does it say what studio? Because it was at Prairie Sun.
Yes, I believe it was.
That's a pretty legendary studio around these parts. I don't know if people are still recording that. I'm sure they are, but it's definitely one of those places here in the North Bay, along with like the Phoenix Theater in Petaluma. That's like these like weird kind of landmarks for. You're like, whoa, that was recorded in Cotati. I had no idea. Studio D in San Rafael, or I think it's either in San Rafael or Sausalito. They did a bunch of like Faith No More albums and stuff, and just like you would never expect that shit to come out of this area. Sometimes it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of times in doing research, like all these places pop up, and I'm like, wait a minute, I lived there for how long and I didn't know this?
Yeah,
but it's cool. It's cool when you find that stuff out because it's like, damn, it makes the album just a little bit more like, okay, I understand where this came from now, where it was recorded, and you can kind of connect.
Yeah,
with
it's got its roots, so to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like physical roots. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So dude, I can't say enough about Paul Gilbert and his guitar playing. Like he's one of those guys that I think. I don't know if it's kind of weird having to rank those solo guitar player guys because they're all so fucking good, but I know he was very heavily influenced by like Yngwie for sure, and you can kind of tell in his playing a little bit, which I don't know.
Yeah.
I know they had a song on one of their later albums where it was called like YFR for Yngwie fucking ripoff or something like that. Which is pretty funny, but I mean, I remember listening. I had a friend show me this album probably like 4 or 5 years ago, because he's really into those kind of guitar players, and I remember listening to it and not really giving a crap because I didn't like the vocals, but listening to it again recently, I was just kind of like, fuck, man, why did I not like this? Like, this is actually really fucking solid. So I was way more into it this time around, listening to it, and I mean. Not only is Paul Gilbert in the band, but you have Bruce Belay too, who is also like another one of those guys that just can shred the fuck out of a guitar. And basically, they would practice for like 8 hours together, just playing in sync to just try and get those guitar solos on point. And it really, really shows in this album that they put in the work to make everything sound as flawless as possible.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
This was like, I like to think of albums like this in terms of when they were recorded too, because '87, you don't have like your Pro Tools set up. Like, a lot of times, to be honest, I'd never heard this album before you guys were telling me that we were going to talk about it. So I listened to it today, and a lot of it kind of reminds me of like that Dragon Force type of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is so easy to record nowadays because you have the benefit of like, this high-tech studio shit and slowing down recordings and everything, but
everything just going digital, so if you stuff it up, just take two again. It doesn't cost the studio any money, but it's like back then you would have had to record everything on tape, and fucking when you record on tape and you stuff up, you may as well just burn $100 bill.
Yeah, exactly. And these motherfuckers just walked in and like, all right, we got some guitar riffs, and just like laid it down on tape. It's like sometimes that shit blows my mind, like stuff like that, like when you think about records like Dark Side of the Moon being recorded on tape, it's just like, man, how the fuck, those guys were on some next level shit back then, dude.
Yeah, they definitely had to go in like way more prepared than bands do nowadays, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
yeah, I mean, like speaking from experience, I literally just did an album in November, our fifth album with my fourth with the band, and like we were very well rehearsed for probably a year and a half. Together as a band, but there's something like extra weird about recording in a studio where you have a microscope on you, and like any sort of like technical flaw in your playing is amplified, and then this weird thing happens where sometimes you get into your head or like, oh man, I can't nail this part. So anytime I hear someone just going balls out, like Jason Becker, Paul Gilbert, all these guys, it's like so inspiring almost to me. It's like such precise shredding.
Yeah, I wish I could even play like 1/10 as good as any of those guys.
Yeah, I'm a guitarist, but like I don't even try to fuck with this kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's very like cool to me, and I like sort of wish I could do it. You know, like every guitar player wishes they could just like rip out a huge arpeggio. You know, but that's not really my style of playing. But I do appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what I came to realize too. Playing guitar is like I'm never gonna be able to do it, so I can just dream and hope that just act like I can do it.
Exactly. You can't lose if you don't play. That's
It's true. So let's see. Oh yeah, so a little bit actually, because we're talking about like the Pro Tools and everything. A lot of how they would write some of these songs is John would just record onto a CD, just a little bit of parts, and the, I guess the engineer or whatever, he would just assemble everything into a song, and then that's how they would make their songs, as opposed to like writing everything out all in one. It seems like.
Wow. Again, like with technology, that stuff is pretty easy to do today with setting files on the internet. But 87, you would have had to drop it in the mailbox and like sit with it on your boombox and learn your parts if this band was going to play live. So again, very impressive.
Yeah, they definitely had a good chemistry in the band. They definitely worked their shit out and like had everything like as smooth as it possibly could go, which is nice. I watched a couple live videos of them playing, and it's flawless, which is crazy.
Yeah, I love going in YouTube holes of just the 80s shredders. It's like that. Who's the guy who plays with two guitars, like one on each hand?
Michelangelo Battio or Batio. I don't know how to say his name, but
yeah, Michelangelo. We'll just go with that.
Yeah.
Man, I could spend 2 hours watching that dude just fuck around.
Yeah,
those are dangerous. Those are dangerous kind of like rabbit holes to go down.
Yeah. It almost happened to me last night because I was looking up a bunch of Paul Gilbert videos, and then I was like, it's like next thing you know, it's 1:30 in the morning. I was like, all right, I should probably go to bed. So there's two cover songs on this album. One is a David Bowie cover, which is crazy because I love David Bowie, but it actually gets a shit ton of criticism, and people actually hate it because it's nothing really like the original song, which I agree with. And even the bass player, I think, was like, he was kind of explaining that the only reason they covered it is so that way it was like a backdrop so they could just do shredding behind it. And they did that at the expense of all the charm and subtlety of the original, is what he was saying. Which, it still sounds cool with all the extra guitar work in there, but I mean, it's no Mick Ronson guitar
Is that
work.
One where he's singing about like how he's an alligator and shit?
Yep, that's the one.
I was listening to it at work today. Like, what the fuck is happening now? I didn't realize it was a Bowie song. That's cool.
Yeah, it was on The Man Who Sold the World, I believe. So like his second album. And then the other one is Heart of a Lion. That was actually a Judas Priest song that got dropped from Turbo. And apparently the song was a birthday gift from Rob Halford. He kind of befriended Jeff Martin in the band's early days. And Halford recorded the track later on with just like his solo project. So it actually sounds fucking really awesome, that song, Heart of a Lion. And you can even tell just by listening to it, it's clearly a Judas Priest song. It just, the way they play it, the guitar solos, everything.
Yeah, even this, and even especially more when Halford actually did the vocals on it, that song fucking goes hard.
Yeah, the vocals make a bit of a difference on that. Just because I think that's like the only thing I don't really enjoy about the band is the vocals. They're not terrible, but they're not,
Yeah, well, I mean, keeping in mind, like, during the actual recording of this album as well, they were tuning around, like, we were talking about, everything kind of has to be organic because there wasn't a lot of digital stuff. A lot of the vocals on this, they really kind of were mucking around with a lot of vocal tuning, kind of like software and a lot of toys and that, just to, apparently, like, the vocalists would do this while everyone was, like, kind of sleeping. He'd just kind of, like, fuck around at night during the recording of this album.
So he's, like,
on that as
everything.
well. And I mean, listening to this album for me, the vocals is that it kind of did throw me off, but you know, if you can look past it, it's actually a pretty solid album.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's one of those nice little surprises that if you go back and listen to it, you're just like, holy fuck, like this was out in '87, and you know those guys too. Like, I mean, I don't know for sure, but a lot of them didn't have the same tools that a lot of guitar players have today. They were either like self-taught or they had to go to like guitar schools or guitar classes to learn a lot of that stuff, which I think Paul Gilbert did, if I'm not mistaken. He went to one of the schools. I forget which one.
Yeah, be like classically trained. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this album really almost is ahead of its time if you think about the whole you know, the guitar virtuoso kind of genre that is metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of these players also went on to kind of create their own like shred videos that dudes would like pick up in Guitar World magazine and like music stores. Like I know Paul Gilbert probably had like 10 videos of like shred like Paul Gilbert.
Oh yeah.
So like you listen to guys like Tosa and Abasi, that dude from Animals as Leaders, always talks about how you just learn how to shred from these like fucked up videos with dudes with like huge permed hair, like just ripping arpeggios on their Jacksons.
Yeah, bands like that are definitely like the new wave of the virtuoso guitar players for sure. And the crazy thing about this record is like this is kind of when it first started because you had like the earlier guys like Yngwie and Satriani, but then you start seeing Paul Gilbert and Jason Becker and what's his name? The other oh my god, I'm slipping on his name right now, but he does a lot of stuff like that too, and those guys started popping up, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is a thing. Like this is just guitar players playing their instrument really, really well and really, really fast. But they used it for heavy metal, which is even crazier because they could have used it for like anything, like classical music. A lot of them even play classical tunes, but they do it in like this crazy heavy metal, like shred style.
Yeah, what's funny is a lot of those dudes who came out of this whole movement ended up in like hair metal bands. Like,
Yeah.
if speaking of like Paul Gilbert, what the fucking Mr. Big? Are you kidding me?
Mr. Big, I know.
If you listen to what's that? The one who wants to be, that fucking song, dude. That's like miles away from anything Racer X did. But like
I know.
every one of those bands had a shredder. Like Winger had oh man, I'm blanking on his name now, but every one of them, like Rat had a fucking shredder, like Cinderella had a shredder, like all these like pop rock bands had to have like the most virtuosic guitar player.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting that like that's kind of how it went. They were more interested in like a genre that you wouldn't expect them to be in.
Yeah, well, that was money was, man. They, MTV was like, "What's that? You guys got a fucking some big hair and some weird songs." They put it right on there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Paul Gilbert was saying too. Is like, it was fun being in Racer X, but he wanted to do something like a little bit more mainstream, and kind of, play that kind of stuff. And I mean, I mean that was a huge hit for them with Mr. Big, so it worked out in his favor.
And what's interesting is like we're talking about the kind of the shredder virtuoso guitarist now, and all those bands like Animals as Leaders, like Scale the Summit, they don't have vocalists.
Nope.
They can essentially just write a song with its hooks and with its chorus as well without having to do it. But the fact that they were able to not so much just shred out for like 4 minutes, but also shred out 4 minutes, but also work in a song in there with with its actual choruses, its bridges, solos, all of that stuff that you'd see in a proper structured song. Again, the fact that they're able to do all of that, I think, is a real testament to this album and to the playing of everyone in Racer X.
Yeah, I agree. And also, Steve Vai was the guy I was thinking of.
Yes, old Stevie. Whitesnake.
Yep.
He was in Whitesnake. Speaking of, every cock rock band has to have a shredder. Steve Vai and
Yeah, I was actually doing some research for some later albums, and man, Steve Vai's name pops up on a lot of like metal records that he mixed and mastered for bands, and I'm just like, holy fuck, like this guy is just all over the place. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Steve Vai played with Frank Zappa, like
Yeah.
when he was a young man. So that motherfucker's been everywhere.
So I guess my question for you guys, since this album is 30 years old now, how do you think it holds up for being that old or young?
Again, it's the same thing. If you can get past the vocals and the production of it, and just learn, okay, it is from, 1987. It is a second album. It is a sophomore album.
Yeah.
I really think it still holds up, especially with all the with the resurgence of the virtuoso, like Animals as leaders.
Yeah, I could easily see them going on tour together, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
When you put it in the perspective of when it came out, this sounds exactly like 1987. I feel like this kind of style of like fast thrash with straightened guitar is kind of made a comeback, like, maybe 4 or 5 years ago with like Spellcaster and bands like that.
Yeah.
So, and they all go for this, like, the same kind of production style. So, as a product of its time, I think it holds up just fine.
Cool. I'm in agreement. I think it's a pretty solid album. I was definitely surprised after hearing it for so long. I
Does Mr.
kind of want to
Big
go
hold
listen.
up?
Mr. Big, no. Not
Is
for
that the
me.
video where, man, now I can't stop thinking about that song with, like, they were in a video and they were like all in the back of a car or some shit.
Yeah, they were playing on acoustic guitars and their long hair, long
Dude.
curly hair.
I'm gonna have to listen to that after this pod.
I know my friend Weatherford was obsessed with that song for the longest time because Paul Gilbert was in it.
Yeah, good song, man. They probably made him $1 million.
Oh, easily, if not more. I can imagine, like, because it does still pop up on the radio from time to time, and they still get royalties off that, I would assume.
Hell yeah.
Cool. So, all right, you guys ready for this one? Manowar,
Yes.
Fighting the World.
Nice.
Always ready for Manowar.
It was released February 17th in 1987. By this point, this is their 5th album, actually, so they've already had a pretty long career. I would say, like, I don't know how many albums they have altogether, but I would have to say this is probably somewhere in the middle of their discography.
Yeah,
this is in the middle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they had like 4 before in the early 80s, and then then there's this one like sandwiched right in the middle.
Yep. So this was actually, Manowar's kind of known for their iconic album covers, and this was actually the first one that had Ken Kelly as the artist on the cover, which is interesting. Their album covers,
Go on.
covers
What's
are.
interesting about
Okay, so for me, Manowar is a lot like Ghost. They have a specific image that doesn't match the music they play, and it throws me off so bad because I expect them to play like this epic Viking type metal or
like a monomath type.
Yeah, exactly. Or like singing songs about Conan the Barbarian, which I'm sure they have some that are like that. I'm not super familiar with Manowar. I could never really get into them all the way. But yeah, I mean, their covers and their whole aesthetic doesn't match the music they play to me, especially on this album. It sounds so far off from like how they look. It's just weird.
It's funny because I can never not think of them shirtless and oiled and rippling when I think of Manowar, so it totally fits for me.
That is true. I as soon as you think of Manowar, you just think of just some like hyper masculine dudes rubbing oil on each other.
Yeah, and
just Joey DeMaio's hairy chest. That's pretty much it.
Yes.
I haven't seen what they look like nowadays. I'm guessing they aren't as ripped and manly, but
Oh, you'd be guessing wrong, my friend.
oh, okay, cool.
Pull up a picture of Joey DeMaio now. He looks like he's 30 years old.
All right.
Shit, I've just put up a picture now, dude. That he's fucking jacked.
Well, that's good to know. I
Yeah.
would be a little worried if they were like really overweight, like older men just still trying to like bust out these tunes.
Well,
It's like Meatloaf from Fight Club.
Yeah.
yeah. That did happen to Ross the Boss, the guitar player on this album. They went on to have another guitar player who looks like fucking Garth from Wayne's World.
Oh,
But
gosh.
Ross the Boss got fat and old, so he took one for the team. But but
Yeah,
Joey
he joined
DeMaio
Team Fat.
yeah, Joey's still he's still a studly.
It happens. I mean, that's age. I was just like, because like I was saying, I'm not super familiar with Manowar, so I was just kind of like curious in my head, and I didn't look up like current Manowar. I was just kind of in this era of Manowar.
Yeah.
So that's good. They kept it up. That's good to know.
They just did a tour like 2 years ago,
Holy
and they
shit.
came to go, and tickets general admission straight off the gate was $100, and I was like,
What?
I'm not gonna. Yeah, well, because they never tour America. They're like, it's a really weird situation where Manowar has been around for like, over 30 years, and people in America could give a shit, but they're huge in Europe, like enormous. They play arenas.
Yeah.
So they never even they don't even fuck with coming to the U.S. when they're going to do a tour. It's not even like on their radar. But for 2 years ago or whatever it was, they were like, we're finally coming to America. It's $100 a ticket. And I really, really considered it for like, 5 minutes. And I was like, I'm not paying $100 to see Manowar.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really curious
Christ,
how that.
I'd
Go ahead.
probably have to pay like $150 to see them.
Yep.
You think so?
Oh, dude, like going to see shows here or anything is ridiculous. Like I was looking to go see like Killswitch Engage this Friday. I'll probably no tomorrow actually.
Mhm.
I might do it. Tickets like $81.
Oh, for real?
Really?
Yeah, they are playing Alive for the first album front to back, but it's like $81.
That's crazy.
Is that because not many tours from overseas come to Australia, so it's just like
Yeah, it's like not many tours come here, and the fact that it's so expensive, you have to fly everywhere. It's you can only essentially play like in 4 cities in an entire country in order to make money, and we don't really have any festivals for for rock music anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fucked up.
Yeah, no, you're telling me it's fucked up.
See, what he's also not telling you is that he has to pay $80, and he also has to give a gallon of fuel and a gallon of water, because that's part of their bartering system over there.
Really?
Exactly. I got to like assemble the war rig, get everyone coming down from Gastown.
Yep.
Oh, I see. Yes, maybe throw in a boomerang or two.
That's true, yeah. But yeah, I mean, with Manowar, I never really listened to them. I always kind of just dismissed them as, they're just a bit of a joke, bit of a kind of really cheesy, really silly. But you mentioned that we're going to talk about this album. I gave it a listen today, and like, it actually isn't that bad.
Dustin's about to disagree.
Yes. No, I disagree, but from my understanding of looking into this album was like a huge departure from their sound that people were used to. This was them trying to go a lot more mainstream and a lot more popular, and I noticed that on a few songs, and I was like, holy fuck, like this doesn't sound like what Manowar, or at least the couple songs that I heard, years ago, like what I even remember. So it definitely shows that they were trying to change their sound up a bit in this album, and I was just kind of like, all right, I don't like this, but I can see why somebody would. Again, and that's what brought like the thought of like, this music doesn't match their aesthetic like whatsoever.
I think what they were going on this one, they were going for like an arena rock thing, 87, you know what I mean? Like all this breaking around then. So you got tunes like Fighting the World, which has that whole like stomp chorus, and then like the ballad Carry On. This stuff sounds like Manowar if you've listened to any of their albums, but you can tell it's just like the dials turned a little more towards the arena rock thing, which like in retrospect it doesn't really change the overall sound in the Manowar spectrum, but it is kind of fun to see them going for like, we're gonna be as big as Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of a couple songs with like gang vocals, and they're trying to get like, you can tell they're trying to get people to like chant and sing along at their shows.
They always do that, but Yeah, I mean, that's the Manowar way. If I would have paid $100 for that show, I would have been stomping and clapping my ass off.
Exactly. You got to get $100 worth of stomping, clapping, and cheering, hooting, and hollering out of it.
Exactly. You know, Manowar is like the thing about them is it's cheesy as fuck, but like they're winking at you the whole time. They're dressed in like loincloths and they're all oiled. They know what the fuck they're doing, and like it's just for some reason it like just strikes that like deep little kid heavy metal part in me where I'm just like, man, I know this is fucking cheesy and like kind of stupid, but it also rules, and I'm gonna like chug a beer while I'm listening to this, you know?
Yeah, Brothers of Metal. Yeah, that kind of.
Dude, every one of their songs is about like some like unforeseen force, like stifling their heavy metal. Like we gotta fight against who would keep heavy metal down, man. They're trying to stifle us. Be like, who's trying to stifle you? What are you talking about? Like we gotta rally around heavy metal and defend its honor. Like, okay.
Yeah, the dragons we're talking about is just the government.
Yeah. Maybe the European government has it out for them. I don't know.
You know, I did watch a couple music videos of theirs, and I gotta say they're pretty hilarious too. They're like, I can tell they're overreacting on purpose just to make it that much more funny and cheesy. So I get the shtick for sure. Like it's definitely entertaining. You know, the music's just kind of whatever to me. It's not something that I would go out of my way to listen to. But the cool thing, since we were talking about this earlier, this is like the second album ever to be recorded entirely mixed and recorded on digital equipment, with Judas Priest Turbo being the first one. So that's kind of like a step in that direction that you were talking about, where it's like tape and everything is gone and now it's going all digital.
That's the second Judas Priest Turbo reference you've dropped so far.
Yeah, I just noticed that got brought up earlier, so must have been.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously way less technical shit going on with the Manowar song, but digital is always. I'm sure they were having quite a good time fucking around with that. It must have been like brand new technology for them in '87. Like they probably couldn't wait to get in the studio.
Yeah, I'm curious of what their like budget was like for this kind of thing too. It's really hard to find like stats on that stuff, even though like I'm kind of interested in that. Especially because like when we were doing Black Sabbath stuff, it was like, oh yeah, they spent this much money on all these recordings, and it was like kind of readily available. But everything else, it's like hard to find how much they spent in the studio to record stuff. But
and even more on drugs.
Always.
Yeah, drugs, beer. They had to buy the loincloths. Those aren't cheap.
No. It had to be made from the hair of a virgin.
Exactly. Yeah, I get you, Dustin. I'm with you. Like my brain is with you, but my heart will always be with Manowar, just because they're so fucking metal.
Oh
it's
no,
just
dude.
ridiculous.
I totally get it. Trust me. Like, I'm the same way with Ghosts. Like I like them a little bit more than Manowar. Like I'll listen to their music, but I think their visual with the songs, it throws me off so bad because I'm expecting them to just like blast beat and growl at the moon. It's not there.
It is interesting dynamic.
Oh man.
That's right.
All right. So Manowar, what's the verdict on Manowar for 30 years? And let's just say, I guess I shouldn't say this because I haven't heard all of Manowar's discography, but let's just say this album in general, how does it hold up for 30 years?
I think it's kind of hard to judge this album when we're talking about Manowar, just because it is the whole aesthetic, it is the whole, kind of cult of personality that is Manowar. It isn't just the music, it's also the imagery. It's also it's just also everything that's surrounding it. I mean, it's good for like a laugh if you can find a whole bunch of people that know Manowar. It's really good to like just sing a couple of songs when you're like fucking wasted at a pub. But I mean, other than that, like I don't really see how Manowar is still relevant anymore when you have bands, like Ghost and other ones that are already doing the kind of, it's also the music and the imagery better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
I feel like every Manowar album is just part of one big Manowar album. So to say how this one holds up, it sounds. I listened to it again today. It sounds exactly like Manowar to me. So it might be a little bit on the, like I said earlier, a little more towards the arena rock side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But they always have that shit going on. So some classics on there. Blow Your Speakers is it. He's like talking shit about MTV on that song. It's just so fucking hilarious shit. So love it. Always love Manowar. I will.
Yeah, if you buy into the joke, it gets better.
Yeah.
No, you can't just sit here and be like, "What are these? What are these guys trying to say here with this album?" Like, they're trying to tell you to like go fucking shotgun a beer and like ride your motorcycle off into the sunset.
I didn't think it was terrible, but it wasn't like totally my thing. You know what I mean? Like I was saying, I'm not going to go out of my way to listen to it. I could definitely see. I can definitely see it having its place in history of the genre for sure. The whole band, this album alone, even though the opinions on it that I was reading are very, very polarizing, which is hilarious to me. But yeah, I think it's got its place, and it's cool that it's 30 years old. Hopefully, more people will look back into it, since it's going to be coming up, or it's already past like the 30-year anniversary of it. So yeah, man, I think it's what it is.
Yeah, other bands play.
Yeah.
Manowar killed. Don't ever forget that shit.
All right, so we saved the best for last, guys. Entirely. Yes. I am mega stoked to finally not only to be talking about a King Diamond album, but to be talking about the Abigail album. There's so much to say about King Diamond. Obviously, we're not skipping over Fatal Portrait, but we're starting with this one because of the 30-year thing. So I know last year they did the tour for it, I guess because that's when they recorded it, so it makes more sense for that to be the 30-year anniversary, even though it was released in 87, at least in America. Could have been released in 86 in other countries, as far as I know. It's a weird rift there with like when stuff is released. So yeah, man, so King Diamond, Abigail, there's a fuck ton of stuff to talk about on this album, and then after that we have a very special treat for you all that we're gonna
oh yes,
we're gonna dramatically reenact the story of Abigail. So
I can hardly wait.
Yeah, so before that, let's get into the album. If you're not familiar with King Diamond, just stop what you're doing right now. Don't even listen to this. Go buy his entire discography along with Merciful Fate. Take like a day off work and listen to everything. That's my advice to you right now. Like, you're gonna thank yourself later on. I can't say enough good things about King Diamond and Merciful Fate. So for this album, this is their second album, like I was saying. King started this band as a way to kind of get out of the recording contract with Merciful Fate, and he also saw an opportunity to kind of change the writing style of the band, so they went with more of a story-based approach to their lyrics, which, if I'm not mistaken, they're definitely... I don't want to say they're the first band to do this, but they are one of the first bands to kind of like have concept albums like this. Maybe you guys know something that I don't, or that I didn't look into off the top of your head, but...
Yeah, well, as far as metal goes, they're ones that definitely pioneered it. They definitely do it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had all a lot of the prog rock bands from the 70s, like Yes, and they had a concept album thing going, but King Diamond really took it into like the horror realm, So
yeah, a lot of darker territory, a lot of stories of ghosts and murder and weird little things. I'm actually honestly surprised a lot of this stuff hasn't been made into like a TV show or a movie yet, because it's ripe for that kind of stuff. So for this album, sorry, what was that?
I said I would watch the shit out of that.
Oh yeah, no, entirely. All these stories are so good. That's the thing about a lot of King's albums is even the music's good, but you listen to the lyrics and the story, and it sucks you in on a whole another level that you're just enshrouded in just like the whole thing. It's not two parts, it's a whole that gets you into the music, I think.
Yeah, and he's able. Have either of you guys seen him play live?
I have had two
No.
chances and did not get to go to either of them, and it really bummed me out.
Yeah. Well, I saw the Abigail tour that you were just talking about, and the cool thing about the story-based lyrics is he's able to act out these stories on stage. Like he has all these like extra actors come with him. Like for that, like when he played Abigail, the entire thing, his wife is his like backup singer, and she was playing the part of Abigail. And they had this whole like stage setup where they had the staircase where the guy gets kicked down the stairs.
Oh, yes.
And then they went into the basement, and there was like the whole scene there. So it was like watching a play basically. But you have Abigail being played in front of you with like Andy LaRocque on lead guitar. So it's just like it takes it to a whole other level. It's awesome. I've seen King 3 times, and it's like the greatest show every time.
Yeah, that's one thing. I'm hoping he does another tour this year, because I am hell or high water. I'm gonna go. It really sucks that I missed both times. You know what's funny too is both times I had guest list. I could have got in for free, and I was like, I couldn't either get a ride or get off work, and I was like, this fucking sucks. How are you gonna do this to me, universe?
That's fucked, dude.
I know. It is what it is, though. As long as he doesn't die, I'll be okay. There's still time.
I can't even remember the last time he came out here.
Oh man.
So
yeah.
I mean, yeah, like trying to bring all that here. It's like I said, I don't know if I get the full experience or what it would be, but yeah, I can't even remember. Like for all my time being in metal, I like being into like heavy metal. I can't remember the last time King Diamond toured here.
Yeah, I can imagine it would have been a while, especially because he was on a break for the longest time, and I think he only did do like U.S. tours, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he had some major like heart surgery problems, and then he took like 10 years off of touring. The first time that they did it, his like comeback tour was in 2014 or 13.
Yeah.
And it had been 10 years since he toured America. And I think I think you're right. It was North America specifically, because he's from Denmark, but he lives in Texas now.
Yeah. Yeah, I always thought that was funny. It's like, Texas, huh? Can be farther and weirder of a place to live than Denmark.
Well, it's actually, yeah, he, one of the awesome things about writing for Decibel is I get to like talk to some of these like people that have been huge fans of for years, and I got to speak to King Diamond on the phone for like an hour because I was doing a piece. They did like a special issue that was like the top vocalists of all time, and King was like number 3 or something like that. So I interviewed him and did this whole like piece about it. But he was telling me that he lives in Texas because the climate is like good for his like health conditions. Like his doctor recommended that he move to like a dry, hot climate. I guess he would be right at home in Australia. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, we're going through summer and it has been very dry, very hot.
Yeah. But that's pretty much why he lives in Texas. I think his wife may be from Texas as well. But yeah, dude, that was a trip talking to King Diamond on the phone. I was like, is this fucking happening right now?
Is this real life? Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's fucking cool, man.
Yeah, it was. And he was telling me another story about getting horrible food poisoning on this Abigail tour. I actually wrote a little thing about it for Decibel, because he had to cancel like 2 shows on the run because he got such bad food poisoning that he went to the doctor and they were like, dude, you can't play. And he didn't want to let the people down, but he told me that he was just like, every time he sang any note, he was going to like shit his pants everywhere.
Oh, poor guy.
Oh, days.
Yeah, you can check it out if you go on the Decibel website and just search for my name and King Diamond. You can find the piece, but it's pretty funny because he goes into pretty graphic detail.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we'll post that actually. That'll be good to read.
Yeah.
So getting back to this record, he had like 75% of the storyline ready to go after he was awoken one night by an unusually violent thunderstorm in Denmark, is what he was saying. Um, he said that this little like creative spurt was the only time that's ever happened for him, that so much was just done like overnight. He written down what he was dreaming about before the storm, and mostly because he was like kind of scared he would forget. So it was very like inspiring to him, and he just kind of brewed a pot of coffee and got back to work and just overnight like wrote like 75% of this, which is pretty fucking cool that just like the creative thing hit and he just went with it and didn't stop.
Yeah, well, also when you think of the absolute fucking classic songs that are on this album, it's still like, you think of King Diamond, you got like 3 or 4 that are, solid, like all-time classic King Diamond songs, and that he could like Family Ghost, Mansion in Darkness. These are tunes that will live forever.
Yeah.
And this motherfucker just wrote them after like a thunderstorm.
Yeah, like wrote them in a night, essentially.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, the coolest thing too is like it seems like he writes all the lyrics or story or whatever it is first, and then they just go in and hammer out the songs around that, which is I don't know about how you feel about doing that, but if I had to write a song that way, I think that would be a lot harder than writing the songs first and then putting the lyrics in afterwards.
Yeah, I've done both ways. Like for now, for my band, I write half the lyrics and our bass player writes half the lyrics. And for me now, it's the other way where we write the music first and we focus on the music, and then I kind of have an idea of where lyrics will go and like, little spots, and then I write from there. But I have done it the other way too, where it kind of depends on like, which way you're feeling creative, the music or the lyrics. Usually for me, it's music, but sometimes lyrics will come first if I have like a cool idea for something, but it's not often. I'm not King Diamond, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know that makes sense. I mean, you have to do it whatever way works best for the song, I think.
Yeah.
So for one of the songs on the album, The Seventh Day of July, 1777, not only is that the birth and death date of Abigail, the namesake character, but this was not actually something that King thought up from his dream. He actually took it, as well as the name, from a real-life grave marker. This little interview here, he says, "Someone sent me a picture of a headstone, and I took that from there." He says of Abigail's moniker and her brief lifespan that began and ended on the 7th day of July in 1777. And he thinks that the photograph was taken at a graveyard in Seattle, which interests me because since I live near Seattle, it makes me want to go out there and see if I can like figure out where it's at and snap a little picture of it.
Yeah, you got to do a road trip, dude.
Yeah, I got to see if it's a real thing and where it's at. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, go up to the graveyard, count how old the dead people are.
Yeah. It's got to be one of the older graveyards, I would assume. But so
yeah, you got your first clue right there.
Yeah. So with this album, how we were talking about the Manowar album was the first recorded on all digital. This was the opposite. They recorded everything on 24-track tape. So obviously that is a lot harder to do because no Pro Tools, nothing automated, no mixers, and a lot of the stuff that went on recording, it was all just hand done. Everything was edited and done on those tapes, like little things like where they're talking about one song, it's like, okay, go up there and in the drum roll with the tom, just don't go any higher than 2, and the guitar solo no higher than 1+, all these little things they had to fix, and I can't
Yeah, like a lot
imagine.
of people would have needed to be on deck to do this.
Yeah, especially with how much production got put into this album. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work went into it, and it's crazy that it's just not like that anymore, which is good. I mean, you definitely want to streamline the process of recording, but the amount of work that went into a lot of these albums is kind of astounding in a good way, I think.
Yeah, it's like I said, it basically you can really do tell that this album it was like a big production. It was almost as you were saying before, in the actual live show that it is like a stage production. I feel like that this album is essentially an audio production of just like many hands on deck. This is actually like a big song and dance.
Yeah, it is almost like an audiobook with music.
Yeah,
I think anyway.
Yeah, it's got to help to have a a creative genius at the head of it. King Diamond, a singular vision, as it were. He's got amazing players with him on this album. I mean, you were talking about Merciful Fate earlier. He has 3/5 of Merciful Fate, counting him. Timmy Hansen and Michael Denner. But then you also have Andy LaRocque, who's like one of the most underrated shredding guitar players of his era, I think. Go
ahead.
Yeah. Oh, and then Mickey D on drums from Motorhead. It's like King Diamond he's had the same lineup for like a good 10 years now, but that was always kind of a thing with these albums where he would have different players like pretty much every album. Like Snowy Shaw was playing drums with him at one point, but for me,
shit, really?
Yeah. I forget what album it is, but Snowy's on there somewhere. But it might even be them actually, or that might be Mickey D. I don't know. You can look that up. But dude, the Abigail lineup for my money is like the best King Diamond lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Andy LaRocque stuff, man. Every time I hear him, just play a solo or the way he kind of writes some of the rhythms or even just the regular guitar riffs. Nobody writes like him. He's got his own style, and that's really, really hard to come by with a lot of guitar players,
Yeah. And King was telling me him and Andy are like they work together pretty closely. Like Andy LaRocque is King's like #1 collaborator, so they write all the music. But King Diamond he plays guitar, so he'll write some riffs and stuff. But I think LaRocque comes and puts like the LaRocque touch on it, and that's what makes it like King Diamond to us. Like there's something very specific about it, particularly the guitar tone. It's like immediately it's not Merciful Fate, even though King Diamond is singing. It sounds like its own thing, and that's because of LaRocque.
Yeah, I know we're not talking about this album yet, but on Conspiracy, I am pretty sure that they're responsible for like writing one of the first breakdowns ever in Sleepless Nights.
Oh yeah,
it gets pretty like chuggy right there in the middle, and you're like, what the fuck? This came out in what? I mean, besides Slayer, and even then, I think that was before Slayer wrote that part. So I just always thought that was interesting that they're somewhat responsible for the breakdowns.
King Diamond ahead of his time.
Oh yeah.
Dude, this album really is just like, if we're talking about how 30 years on, how does an album hold up? How does it still stand up against today? This album still goes hard as anything.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I had to. Well, I didn't have to, but so again, like for Decibel, they do this thing called the Hall of Fame countdown on their website, which is like every issue they have a Hall of Fame entry where they interview everyone who was involved in the making of like a classic album, and they tell the story basically from like a interview, question and answer type of format. Mm-hmm. And they did Abigail at some point, and then they do this thing on the blog called a Hall of Fame countdown, which is when you one of the writers ranks all the songs from like worst to best or whatever, and just writes some bullshits about the songs. And so I did one on Abigail. That's also on the website you can check out. But just like revisiting it again and again so I could write about it, it's just like, man, this album's like perfect. Like I can't. I was trying to like rank the songs in order, and I was like, this is totally pointless. Like every one of these songs is amazing.
Yeah,
it's like this is work.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting paid for this, sort of.
Yeah, I read through your article, and I agree 100% that there's like no way to rank any of these songs, and even then, like you have to listen to them in order to get like the full like experience of the album. So it's like, okay, you want me to rank them song 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know.
I did consider doing that, but then I feel like, you know, some of the songs like like The Family Ghost is just like total classic. Like, then you got, it always makes me think of Beavis and Butthead when they're making fun of the video. But
when you
you're go ahead.
When you talked to him, did you talk about that video at all? Because I was reading about how much he fucking hates that video because of the producer or whoever got in there just fucked it up from like what they wanted to do and just made it all these like, I watched the video, but it's like all these gestures and he's like a king. You know, it's so on the nose. It's like, what is this? Has nothing to do.
It doesn't have anything to do with the Abigail story either.
Yeah.
It's just like random video. No, I didn't ask him about that because the interview wasn't particularly about Abigail. It was just more about it. Since it was about him as a vocalist, I was trying to ask him like what his vocal influences, like how, one of the things I was really interested in is how he came up with his falsetto, because like, you know, that's like one of the most like iconic sound marks in heavy metal. Like the King Diamond falsetto is like a total, you know, it's right up there with like Tom Araya's like Scream or like, you
hear like just the first like half second of it, you instantly know you're listening to King Diamond.
Yeah, and it's not something that you really hear much. Like you hear some singers do falsetto, but they do like the really vibrato-y like, you know, stuff, and it's not their main thing. But like King like uses it like 60 to 70% of the time. So I was really interested in that, and he was telling me it just came from some gig that he was playing with his old band Black Rose, and they were doing Highway Star by Deep Purple, and that song has like a really high like like at the end, and then some guy in the audience came up to him and was like, "Hey man, that falsetto is really good. You should try that again." And so he like got it into his head that it might be a cool thing to do, and he would just bust it out at practice, and the rest is history, they say.
That, you know, that's one thing about his vocals too, is it's not an easy style to pull off, and he's managed to do it for well over 40 plus years, and it still sounds as good as the day he started doing it, I assume. I mean,
oh yeah, he's amazing. I just saw him live. I'm telling you, the guy's 60 years old, and he sounds like he, you know, it just came off a record in 1987. You'd be amazed. I asked him about all that stuff too, like what kind of upkeep is involved with like being that kind of singer when you're 60 goddamn years old. He's just said, you know, it's all about like rest, and like he's very much like a proponent of timed hydration. He was telling me his whole like ritual for like drinking water throughout the day of a show, and like making sure that he's not like talking too much to people. But even still, like it's unbelievable sometimes. He just busts out those high notes like so effortlessly still.
Yeah, that's the first song that I ever heard by him was Welcome Home, and just that opening like Grandma, like that got me, and I was like, who the fuck is this? Like I want more.
Yeah.
And
no, it's like the same thing. The first time I heard of him was that. You remember that Roadrunner United project they did probably about 2002, 2003?
Yeah.
Where they got like a whole bunch of people together and they just got like a whole different bunch of Roadrunner recording artists to make a song. Well, on that record, there was the guys from Trivium did a song with King Diamond.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And I'm listening to it. I was like, who that? And I was probably would have been about like 15 years old at the time, like way before I'd heard of Merciful Fate, King Diamond. I was like, who the hell is this? This is awesome.
Yeah. It's one of those things.
It is awesome.
It sucks you in. So real quick, before we go on with the last little tidbit of information, I pulled up a couple of interviews, and we're going to play those for you guys right now so you can kind of hear a little bit about King. These are old interviews from like the 80s, so, you know, it's all dated information, but I thought it'd be cool to insert them into the podcast for you guys to listen to real quick. So we're going to let you hear that.
I'm a band, but King Diamond is very much a band more than just your solo project, isn't it?
It is a band, yes, very much so.
And there's ex-members of Merciful Fate, I think, are part of King Diamond, aren't they?
Yes, we have still got the bass player Timmy Hansen, and we had Michael Dana up till a few days ago. He left the band a few days ago because he couldn't take the strain of touring anymore. He told us that he didn't look forward to the upcoming American tour, and he wanted to get out of it, relax, settle down in Denmark, and he's going to open up a second-hand record store.
Oh, is he really? So he's not going to play anymore then?
No, not at all. He said to us that if he couldn't play with us, he would rather stop, and he couldn't take that strain anymore.
Well, having heard the new album, Abigail, and read the lyric sheet, I would say that it's a concept album. Would I be right?
It is a concept horror story, yeah.
So what is the concept? Tell us very briefly what's the story behind Abigail.
It's about two young people who are inheriting a mansion, and there's something very weird going on in this mansion. They see some ghosts who tell them weird stories, and you hear about what happened in this mansion a long time ago, and all these events sort of happen again.
Right.
The story takes place in 1845, and you go back into 1777 at a certain point, but there's so much happening there.
So
it's really complicated, very intriguing story.
Is it something you've made up, or is it based on historical fact?
I made up the whole story myself. There's one thing, though, that I borrowed. There was an American fan who sent me a photo of a gravestone, and there was a girl called Hannah Alsop who died 7 years old on the 7th day of July, 1777. I used that date, and I used the name of her mother, which was Abigail.
Right.
I used that in the story. The person in the story is a stillborn baby.
Right.
So that it differs a bit, but that's the only thing I've taken from anywhere else.
Well, although the story is essentially fiction, is it a story that could actually happen in real life, do you think?
In my opinion, yes, but a lot of people would believe no.
Right. Well, we should mention this because in the past, particularly I think on Merciful Fate records, you sung about Satan and the devil, call it what you will, but Abigail is more of a horror story. Has that been a conscious move away from talking specifically about the devil?
In a way, a lot of people have misunderstood this all the time. They still misunderstand this word, and that's why we took the word away already with the former album, Fatal Portrait. So this time we just, it was like a big challenge to me to write a full story for an album, because I've never done that before. This is the biggest thing I've done lyrical-wise.
Right.
So it was like a challenge, and again, I think that it'll go easier across as well to the audience, because they know that this is a fiction story.
Right, but I think in the past you certainly worried some people who thought you were rather an evil person.
I know, yeah.
Are you an evil person, in fact, King Diamond?
I don't think anybody who's really met me would say so, but there's probably still some people out there who think so.
Well, I know that you used to play football, and anyone who played football certainly couldn't be an evil person, in my opinion, anyway.
Not really, no.
Football fan.
No, that's right.
Now, what about touring? Because you've been over in America quite a lot. You had plans to go to Japan, and you've been in Europe too. What sort of a stage show can we expect to see from King Diamond?
That's going to be, from the Merciful Fate era until King Diamond, we took it quite a lot further. There was a lot of illusions incorporated in the show, and we're taking it even further on this tour, where people are going to see me burn on stage.
Really? And set yourself on fire? Yes,
and the makeup is going to change during the set, and we're going to play the entire new album on stage. So that's going to be...
So cool. We hope you guys like those those interview. I thought they were pretty cool, so I wanted to pop them in there. The last little cool bit of information about this album, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this too, because I listened to it quite a bit to see if I could hear it. But supposedly on The Family Ghost, I believe, one of the songs. So the song is about how the spirit, Count LeFay, he warns Jonathan about Abigail's impending return and shows him the sarcophagus where the little baby's been stored and everything. And supposedly right before the song's last verse, a guttural voice audibly growls, supposedly to King what he thinks are the words, "Oh, damn." But he says that he never sang the line, neither did anybody else, and he says he has absolutely no idea how he got there, he's insisting on it, and he noticed the phantom voice while him and the engineer Robert Falco were working on the vocal tracks, and they couldn't isolate it, nor could they get rid of it. So they just kind of left it in there, and it was kind of saying that when he performs the song live, he just snarls the "oh damn." But I listened to it 2 or 3 times, and I hear where it's at, but I don't know if it's a mix of instruments or something kind of going over each other that makes a noise. I don't know if it's a voice, but it is there. You can hear it. Have you guys noticed it at all?
Oh, see, now that you mention it, I don't think I have.
Okay. It's kind of near the end of the song. It's like the last, I want to say like minute and maybe 45 seconds of the song, right? Like literally right before the last verse goes on. It's you definitely hear it. I don't know if it's like one of those weird ghost shows where they play the EVPs. You don't know if it's necessarily.
What was that?
Yeah. It's something is there for sure. I don't know what it is. It's funny. It's cool. I kind of was like, oh wow, there is something there.
Even if it's not true.
Yeah, even if
go
it's
ahead
not.
Well, because King, he talks about that in interviews. Like he's a very like spiritual guy, but like on the dark side of spiritualism. Like he was good friends with Anton LaVey, and I think that was what it was. But he's always talking about like how he's experienced these like strange phenomenon when he's recording vocals, and like he doesn't have any idea how certain voices come out of him sometimes, and he attributes a lot of that to like this like dark energy. So it wouldn't surprise me, but also wouldn't surprise me if he's just keeping with the King Diamond thing.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's what I was wondering too, if it was just like a joke and he's like really sticking to it, or what the deal is. But either way, I mean, guys, go listen to that song. Listen for yourselves and let us know if you think you hear it or not, or if we're all just falling for a joke.
Yeah, some very, very spooky ghosts.
So I think we're all in agreement about this album that it exceedingly holds up for 30 years. I'd say even if it got released today, it would still be equally as epic and awesome. Yes, no?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, like I've been talking about, I've spent for the last like year and a half, seems like every time I turn around with Decibel, I'm like writing something about Abigail, which is like, a good problem to have. But it just like writing about this stuff really like crystallizes it in my mind as a metal fan, that like not only is this like, in my opinion, King Diamond's finest hour, but it's just like an awesome moment for metal in general, because it introduced this whole like story-based style of music and the theatricality of like the dark side of metal without being like, I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but like way less cheesy than Manowar,
Yeah.
And if we're talking about the aesthetic style of it and the kind of music that it is, if you were to bring something out like this today for the kids, they've already got stuff like Ghosts, so I really do think that it would be really well received today. If it was just something that was coming up brand new. Yep.
I agree.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to go listen to it right after this.
So, with all that said, with all those albums, we're going to do something very, very special for you guys. We are now going to dramatically read the story of Abigail. So, Matt, if you would like to start. Everybody knows their parts, correct?
I believe you mean narrator.
Yes, narrator.
Yeah, cue spooky music and fog, and maybe some rain.
Cued.
We are gathered here tonight to lay to rest Abigail LaFay, whom we now know was first born dead on the 7th day of July, 1777. Abigail must be nailed to her coffin with 7 silver spikes, 1 through each arm, hand, and knee, and the last of the 7 be drawn through her mouth, so that she may never rise and cause evil again. Who will be the first?
I, O'Brien of the Black Horseman.
Through the summer rain of 1845, the coach had finally arrived to the valley where the crossroads meet below, and where all darkness seems to grow. People blame it on the hill where no one dares to go, the mansion where no one dares to go. The coach had stopped, and from the window you could see 7 horsemen in the night. Miriam Natice and Jonathan LaFay saw the magic in their eyes. They were in for a surprise. The darkness would soon be complete. A horseman came forth from the dark.
We know you've come to inherit what's yours, the mansion. Take our advice and go back on this night. If you refuse,
18 will become 9.
Jonathan laughed and said,
Get out of my way. I don't believe in what you say.
The 7 horsemen disappeared into the night.
Someday you'll need our help, my friend.
I think poor Jonathan is scared. 18 is actually 9 is stuck in his head. Riding up the alley in the rain, there were no lights to show the way. How could this ever be their home? Through the darkness, you could only see a giant shadow, which was to be a house where evil ruled at night. And the shadows at the gate, they seemed to be alive. Everything inside was left untouched, except for what the rats had got and the dust of time that showed its mark. Armed with candlelight and open eyes, through the dark they fought their way till every room was lit again. The house began to breathe and seemed to be alive. As the candlelight began to fade, Jonathan said,
Let's go to bed.
The fireplace had ceased to burn. Both were fast asleep before the dawn, dreaming. And they did not know about the shadow. Yes, the shadow on the wall, it really came alive. The shadow on the wall, sunrise! The darkness came closer to home on the following night, and Miriam slept like a rock when Jonathan's face went white. The bedroom was ice cold, but the fire was burning still. The blinding light, the family ghost had risen again, the ghost.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared now, my friend. I am Count de la Fay. Let me take you to the crypt down below where Abigail rests. Let Miriam sleep. She would never understand. Now come, let us go. It's time you know. Beware of the slippery stairs. You could easily fall and break your neck. Now hand me that torch and I will lead you down to the secret in the dark. Take a look into the vault. The sarcophagus of a child, Abigail, has still been there for years and years stillborn. The spirit of Abigail is inside your wife, and there is only one way you can stop the rebirth of evil itself. You must take her life now.
The 7th day of July, 1777. Count Lafay uncovered his cheating wife. 9 months of loving and sharing. It was a bastard child. How could he have been so blind?
No bastard baby will inherit what's mine.
Another one of her affairs had left him in despair, so he pushed her down the stairs. To die!
No!
It's 1777. Alright, sorry. In 1777, on the 7th day of July, the Countess broke her neck and the embryo came out dead. Then he burned his beloved wife, and the embryo he gave a name.
Abigail, you must rest in shame.
Obsessed with a strange idea, he wanted to mummify the girl for the future to find. And he did. Nobody's inside the church, but the bell is ringing. For no reason, the flowers are dying. Inside the mansion, the air is unbearable. A rotten smell in the dining room. The table is set for 3.
Miriam, come look what I've found. It's moving, an empty cradle swaying in the air. I did not bring it here. Now did you?
No! No! No!
On the very next morning, when the mist was eaten away by the sun, Miriam grew hour by hour, and Jonathan, he cried. He knew the ghost had been telling the truth, so this was 9. The pregnancy would not last overnight. She started singing a lullaby, rocking the cradle again, and then she said,
I'm having your baby, my love.
But it wasn't love, oh no. She was possessed, and he knew.
I will get what is rightfully mine.
Speaking with different tongues, Miriam was eaten alive from inside. Again, she said,
I'm having your baby, my love.
But it wasn't love, oh no. She was possessed.
Abigail, I know you're in control of her brain, Abigail. And I know that you're the one that's speaking through her, Abigail. Miriam, can you hear me?
I am alive inside your wife. Miriam's dead. I am her head.
Abigail, don't you think I know what you've done? Abigail, I'll get a priest and you'll know how to take her soul back.
Oh, Jonathan, this is Miriam. Our time is out. Remember the stairs? It's the only way.
Abigail, nothing I can do to give in, Abigail. Follow me to the crypt. Your aunt will be reborn and where you died, Abigail.
Jonathan, I agree. Yes, I do. I am alive inside your wife. Miriam's dead. I am her head. Soon I'll be free.
So there they stood at the top of the stairs, Miriam in the mood. Jonathan was scared. Gazing into the dark, Jonathan saw the star. For a second he turned his back and she was there like a ghost. She pushed him hard and clean to the bottom of the stairs.
Now we're finally alone, Miriam. Abigail is here to stay.
The birth of Abigail would soon be realized, the second coming of a devil in disguise. And the moon did not shine, it was darker than ever before. On this sacred night, the soul of Miriam was crying out in pain, remembering the day, arrival in the rain. The pain of labor was so strong that Miriam died. The final seeing was a pair of yellow eyes. You can still hear her screaming if you're walking the stairs in July. Riding from beyond, the 7 horsemen would arrive before the dawn. Servants of the Count, when Abigail was born the first time. Oh no, they found her in the sarcophagus. Baby Abigail was eating, oh, I cannot tell you.
Take her and bring her to the chapel in the forest. So go now, the ceremony and the coffin's waiting.
That's the end of another lullaby. Time has come for me to say goodnight.
Yeah! We did it.
Dude.
That was surprisingly fun.
Oh, dude, that was awesome.
Fucking hell, I'm not going down any stairs anytime soon.
Now, what do you, that sets it up perfectly for Abigail 2, The Revenge. Do you guys know that album?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't have it like written out or anything here, but we are definitely going to talk about it eventually for sure.
Yeah, well, 2002. It took him, was that 15 years?
Ooh, yeah, definitely took a while.
Good tunes on that one. It's kind of one of the later ones, but Mansion in Sorrow is a great song. Mansion in Sorrow! And what else is on there? Slippery Stairs is kind of cool. Like, he definitely wrung some more out of the Abigail well. It wasn't like shitty sequels where you're like, why the fuck is he doing this? It's like, oh man, he's got more to tell about Abigail. She was left down. Her story is not over.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, why not revisit it? Any of his stories, for the most part, could be revisited. I think maybe I'm thinking of something else, but I'm thinking of something else. The Voodoo album.
You're thinking of Manowar, weren't you?
No, definitely not. All right, guys.
I know I am.
That was a blast. That was a good way to end this. I can't wait to put it all together and hear what it sounds like when it's all finished. Matt, let everybody know where to find you and your band and everything like that.
Yeah, Cormorant, we're on Bandcamp probably is where you can order our albums digitally or right from us. Cormorant, CORMORANT .bandcamp.com. And then we also have, I don't know if it's still available, but we have vinyl releases on Blood Music, that label. They're from Finland. So if you're a vinyl fan and you like our shit, then there might be some left. I haven't checked it in a while. But yeah, that. And then, just Decibel magazine. Read it. Print. We still got a print magazine out there in the world. So I think it's pretty cool. And I like supporting the concept of print media. It seems like it's kind of going out of style these days, but I think Decibel does a great job, and I like writing for him, so read Decibel.
I love that they put the flexi discs in a lot of the issues.
Yeah, it's cool. It gives it there's a little more incentive to purchase the product, when you get a cool like little collector's thing.
Yeah. Cool. So, anything else?
No, that's it, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Yeah, man.
It was an absolute blast and a pleasure having you, mate.
Yeah, we'll have to have you on again soon, whenever you want, man. I know you said you wanted to talk about the Candlemass album, and I know we're going to get to that one, so we can have you back on when that one comes around.
Yeah, if you're doing like 87, I mean, there's so much stuff. But yeah, like I said, Nightfall, Candlemass, I'm a huge Candlemass fan, so I would love to talk about that, or like, yeah, anything, really. I like all kinds of even Manowar.
All right, guys.
That's awesome, mate. No.
As usual, add us on Facebook, Heavy Metal History Podcast. You can email us, heavymetalhistorypodcast@gmail.com. Fuck, I don't know. That's...
Got our Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. I think that's where a lot of our listeners come from, so thank you guys. We've been seeing the numbers, and we appreciate all you guys and interacting with us. It's fucking cool. Yeah, I don't know. We got some cool stuff coming up, and we just hope you keep listening. Spread the word.
Anyway, until then, have a fucking good day, and cheers, cunts.
Cheers, cunts.
Be excellent to each other. And